My mom worried I was losing my mind. My father refused to let me speak about it. Every time I tried to explain what I had seen, what I had felt, the tension in our house grew. Every moment of my life, every time I had taught someone that Jesus was just a prophet, every time I dismissed the Bible, every time I confidently declared that Christians misunderstood God, was laid out before me in stark clarity. The weight of my mistakes crushed me, pressing down. And I, not just as a prophet, not just as a man, but as God Himself. His presence filled me with love so overwhelming, so all-encompassing, that it brought me to tears. It wasn't a love I had ever known before, deeper, fuller, and more perfect than anything I had ever imagined. In His presence, the lies I had believed about Him dissolved. My certainty unraveled. And the truth stood before me, undeniable and radiant. I understood the Trinity, a mystery I had mocked my whole life. Suddenly, it wasn't confusing, it was clear, like a puzzle snapping perfectly into place. But my story didn't start there. It started with an ordinary day, in an ordinary home, in an ordinary life. If you believe in God and near-death experiences, subscribe to Life at NDE today. Discover inspiring messages from God through powerful near-death stories that bring hope and understanding. Hit subscribe now and join us in spreading the light of faith. My name is Carlos Faruqi, and I'm 17 years old. I live in Lansing, Michigan, in a modest house with my parents and my 2 younger siblings. Our home is small but filled with love, laughter, and the constant aroma of spices from my mother's cooking. My life might seem ordinary to most people: school, hanging out with friends, spending time with my family, and working my weekend job at a local shop. But what defines me most is my faith and the values my parents have instilled in me. Faith has always been the anchor in my life. I pray 5 times a day, fast during Ramadan, and keep my head covered as a sign of respect and humility. These practices aren't just rituals, they're a way to stay connected to something bigger than myself. Growing up in a devout Muslim family, faith wasn't just something we practiced, it was the foundation of our lives. It shaped how we saw the world, how we treated others, and how we carried ourselves every day. My parents came to America from Pakistan before I was born. They brought with them their traditions, their values, and their dreams for a better future. Life wasn't easy for them. They worked long hours, often sacrificing their own comfort to provide for us. My father took on multiple jobs, and my mother managed the household while also contributing however she could. They taught me and my siblings the importance of hard work, discipline, and devotion to God. For my parents, faith wasn't just a personal belief, it was the guiding principle of our family. Every decision, every action was grounded in our connection to God. My father often says, "When you walk with faith, you are never truly lost." Those words have stayed with me, especially during moments when I felt unsure or overwhelmed by the chow. My life is a balance between 2 worlds. At school, I'm just Carlos, a teenager navigating the usual ups and downs of high school. I study hard, spend time with my friends, and work part-time to save up for college. At home, I'm the eldest son, a role that comes with its own responsibilities. I help my siblings with their homework, assist my parents with chores, and set an example for my younger brother and sister. My connection to my heritage is something I hold close. Although I've never been to Pakistan, I feel its presence in our daily lives in the Urdu my parents speak. in the traditional dishes my mother prepares, and in the stories they share about their lives before coming to America. They remind us of where we come from, even as they encourage us to embrace the opportunities we have here. The mosque is like a second home to me. It's where I've learned about my faith, made friends who share my values, and found a sense of community. On Fridays, I join my father for Jummah prayers. And during Ramadan, we break our fasts together as a family. Those moments are some of the most meaningful in my life, a reminder of the bond we share, not just with each other but with God. Faith has given me a sense of purpose and belonging, even in a world that can sometimes feel confusing or isolating. It's not always easy to balance my identity as a Muslim with the expectations of being a teenager in America. There are times when I feel the weight of misunderstandings or stereotypes. But those moments have taught me resilience. They've reminded me of the strength that comes from knowing who I am and what I believe in. For me, faith is more than just a set of rules or traditions, it's a way of life. It's about showing kindness, being honest, and striving to make the world a better place in small but meaningful ways. It's about remembering that every action has a purpose and every person has worth. I'm proud of where I come from and the values my parents have taught me. Their journey, their sacrifices, and their unwavering faith inspire me to work hard and stay true to myself. I hope to carry their legacy forward, honoring the lessons they've shared while carving out my own path in this world. On the morning my life changed, it felt like any other day. I was rushing around the kitchen, helping my mom make breakfast, my mind already racing with my to-do list. My sister complained of a headache, and I felt a little dizzy. But we all brushed it off as exhaustion. What we didn't know was that our carbon monoxide detector had been dead for weeks. By the time I collapsed, unable to reach my phone, the house was filled with the silent, deadly gas. My sister, barely able to stand, managed to call 911. The firefighters arrived just in time, pulling us out one by one. I was unconscious, without a heartbeat for 5 minutes. For those minutes, I was clinically dead. But during that time, I experienced something beyond anything I could imagine, something that changed everything I thought I knew about life. Death. And what comes after. The doctors called it a miracle. I know it was more than that. I had always defined myself by how well I followed the teachings I'd been raised with. Each day, I asked myself the same questions. Was I praying enough? Was I respectful enough? Did my actions reflect the faith my family and community had instilled in me? These thoughts were constant, shaping the way I lived and how I saw myself. My parents taught me these values from the very beginning. For them, faith wasn't just something we practiced, it was the foundation of our lives. Every decision, every habit, every moment of gratitude or discipline stemmed from it. Our family's life revolved around our beliefs. We prayed together, fasted during Ramadan, and celebrated holidays as a community. Even my closest friends were from my mosque, people I had grown up with since childhood. They shared my experiences, my struggles, and my understanding of what it meant to live a devout life. We were taught to keep our values strong, like anchors in a world that could easily pull us off course. My parents often reminded me, faith is your guide, no matter where life takes you. I believed it deeply, and I tried my best to embody it. But that morning was the last time I would see life that way. It began as an ordinary day. I woke up early, as usual, and started going through my routine. My mind was preoccupied with everything I needed to do, school assignments, helping my mom, and meeting expectations both at home and in my community. Nothing about that morning hinted at what was coming. When my heart stopped, it felt like the world paused with it. In that moment, everything I thought I understood about myself and my faith shifted. For so long, I had measured my worth by how closely I adhered to the rules. I focused on the prayers I said, the moments I stayed disciplined, and the times I resisted temptation. But as my heartbeat faded, none of that mattered in the way I had expected. It wasn't that the values my parents taught me disappeared, they became clearer. It wasn't that the rules were wrong, they now felt like pieces of something much greater. In that brief, suspended moment, I felt connected to something beyond myself. It was as if all the actions I had taken in life, the prayers, the kindness, the small sacrifices, weren't just about following rules. They were preparing me for something I hadn't fully understood until that instant. Looking back now, I realize how narrow my view of faith had been. I'd seen it as a set of obligations to be fulfilled, a checklist of actions that would somehow prove my worth. But what I experienced when my heart stopped went far deeper. When I woke up, everything felt different. My perspective on life, on faith, and on what truly mattered had changed. I still hold on to the teachings my parents passed down to me. They remain the foundation of who I am. But now, I see faith as more than just a guide, it's a connection to something far greater than myself. It's not only about what I do, but also about the intention and love behind it. That moment, the one where everything paused, redefined what it means to live a faithful life. It's not about perfection or meeting every expectation, it's about understanding the purpose behind it all. And that purpose, it's more profound than I ever could have imagined before. It didn't feel like I had expected. There was no tunnel of light, no warm welcome, no voices calling my name. Instead, it felt as if I had been dropped into icy water so cold it seemed to freeze my soul. I felt myself hovering above my body, looking down at the paramedics working frantically to save me. I saw my own face pale and lifeless, and my mom nearby, her face streaked with tears, her hands clutching at something invisible as if begging for a miracle. But I didn't feel scared. It was as if I were watching a movie about someone else. I noticed tiny details I would never have seen otherwise, like the small coffee stain on the sleeve of one of the paramedics. Then, suddenly, everything went dark. It wasn't like closing your eyes. This darkness felt heavy, almost alive, as if it were pressing in on me. I felt myself being pulled, moved by something unseen. And then, I wasn't alone anymore. There was a presence beside me, beautiful yet terrifying, far more powerful and ancient than I could comprehend. It wasn't an angel as I'd imagined, but something that made me feel both insignificant and deeply understood. The being didn't speak, but images and thoughts flooded my mind. My life began to replay not just the events, but the impact of every choice I'd made. I saw moments when my words or actions had hurt others in ways I hadn't realized, and times when small acts of kindness rippled through someone's life, changing it in ways I couldn't have imagined. What struck me most was how my faith had influenced others. While it had often inspired, there were times my words and actions, though well-meaning, had pushed people away. It wasn't about what I believed, but how I made others feel. In the presence of this being, regret filled me, not from judgment, but from clarity. There were no excuses, just understanding. I saw that life is not measured by rules or beliefs, but by the love and kindness we show. That realization wasn't just humbling, it transformed me forever. Then, I began to see more than just my own life. Images flowed through my mind, scenes from history. Truths about the Prophet Muhammad. And other figures I had never learned about before. It felt as though mysteries from the past were being revealed to me. Piece by piece. Like a puzzle I hadn't known existed. Each revelation seemed to build on the last, shifting my understanding in ways I couldn't fully grasp. Everything I thought I knew began to fall away. My assumptions. My rigid beliefs. Even the way I viewed faith itself, it all started to change. The darkness around me shifted too. At first, it was all-encompassing. Like a void. But then, faint movements caught my attention. I noticed countless other souls moving through the space. Each one with a clear and undeniable purpose. Some were drawn upward toward a radiant, golden light I hadn't noticed before. It was warm, inviting, and so full of love that it seemed to pull everything toward it. Other souls, however, drifted downward. Their light grew dimmer as they fell, like flames flickering out. It was as though each soul's destination was shaped by the life they had lived, their choices, their intentions, and the truths they had embraced. I saw people of every faith: Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, and even those who had claimed no belief at all. Each soul seemed to be discovering something profound about themselves and the reality that lay beyond life. What struck me most was that the light wasn't exclusive to any one group. Nor was the darkness. It wasn't about a particular religion or set of rules. It felt deeply personal. As though each soul's path was tied to the purity of their heart, their intentions, and their openness to the truth. This realization defied everything I had ever been taught. It didn't contradict my faith, but it expanded it. Faith, as I now saw it, wasn't confined by rituals or doctrines. It was something far greater, a connection that transcended boundaries and spoke directly to the essence of the soul. And just as suddenly as it began, it ended. I was pulled back. My sister, barely able to stand, somehow managed to call 911. Upstairs, my brother lay unconscious. By the time the paramedics arrived, our house was saturated with carbon monoxide, a silent, invisible killer that had crept into every room without warning. They told my mom I had been without a heartbeat for almost 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Clinically dead. But in those 5 minutes, I experienced something far beyond anything I could have imagined. When I think back on it now, it feels as though my entire life had been leading up to that moment. Years of praying, following the rules, and striving to be a good person, all of it seemed like preparation for what I was about to see. The doctors called my survival a miracle. They said my family was lucky to have survived at all. But I know now that it wasn't just luck. What I experienced during those 5 minutes changed everything I thought I knew about life, death, and what comes after. It transformed my understanding of faith. Not by erasing it, but by deepening it in ways I never thought possible. I had always defined myself by my faith. Was I praying enough? Was I showing proper respect? Did I represent my beliefs well to others? These questions were constant, shaping how I saw myself and the choices I made. My parents taught me these values, grounding our family's life in faith. It wasn't just a part of our lives, it was the foundation. My closest friends were from my mosque, people who shared my upbringing and worldview. Together, we were taught to hold fast to our beliefs, to seek the right path, and to avoid anything that might lead us astray. Faith gave us structure, meaning, and a sense of belonging. But that morning was the last time I would see life that way. When my heart stopped, everything changed. It didn't feel like I had expected. There was no tunnel of light. No warm embrace welcoming me to another place. Instead, it was as though I had been dropped into icy water so cold it felt like it froze my very soul. I found myself hovering above my body. I could see everything as though I were an observer, detached from the chaos below. The paramedics were working frantically, their faces tense and focused. My pale face lay motionless, my lips slightly parted, while my mom sobbed nearby, clutching my sister as if she were the only thing grounding her. I noticed small, insignificant details I would never have seen otherwise: the tiny coffee stain on a paramedic's sleeve, the way one of their shoelaces was undone, the trembling in my mom's hands as she reached out but didn't dare touch me. Then, suddenly, everything went dark. It wasn't like closing your eyes. This darkness was alive, heavy, and suffocating. It felt as though it was pulling me, drawing me towards something unseen and incomprehensible. I couldn't resist it, nor did I know what lay ahead. The sensation was terrifying yet strangely familiar, as if I had always known this moment would come. The heaviness wrapped around me, not with malice, but with purpose. I was moving, being carried towards something I couldn't yet understand. In that darkness, I began to feel the weight of my life not as a series of events, but as the sum of my choices, my actions, and the way I had treated others. Everything I thought I had known about myself, my faith, and my place in the world started to shift. I realized then that life, as I had understood it, was only the beginning. I wasn't alone anymore. There was a presence beside me, beautiful and terrifying all at once. It wasn't an angel with wings, like the ones I'd imagined as a child. Instead, it was something far more ancient and powerful, radiating an energy so overwhelming that it made my soul feel small, almost insignificant. The being didn't speak, but its thoughts poured into my mind in a flood of images and emotions. Each one was vivid, undeniable, and deeply personal. I saw my life replayed before me not as a series of events, but as the ripples of every choice I had ever made. Moments I thought were forgotten came rushing back, the words I had spoken, the actions I had taken, and the intentions behind them. I saw times when my words or actions had hurt others, sometimes in ways I had never realized. A careless comment, a harsh judgment, or even a moment of indifference, all of it left scars I had been blind to. But I also saw the light I had brought into the world. Acts of kindness I had deemed small or insignificant had rippled through people's lives, creating hope and meaning in their darkest moments. Every smile, every moment of compassion, every time I had helped someone in need, it all shone brightly, illuminating paths I hadn't even known existed. Then, I saw something that broke me. I had always believed I was helping others get closer to the truth. My faith had been my anchor, my guide, and I thought my words and actions were leading people toward light. But the being showed me moments where my certainty, my dedication to what I believed, had instead pushed others further away. I saw how my insistence on being right, my unwillingness to see others' struggles, had created walls instead of bridges. My faith, so deeply rooted in tradition and conviction, had blinded me at times to the pain and needs of those around me. A deep sorrow filled me. It was a sorrow that left no room for excuses, No space to justify my actions. I was laid bare. Stripped of defenses. Faced with the truth of who I was and what I had done. The being led me further into the darkness. I saw souls moving through it. Each with a purpose. Their paths unmistakable. Some were drawn upward toward a radiant light. Brighter and more beautiful than anything I had ever seen. This light was warm. Welcoming. And filled with a love so profound it felt infinite. Others, however, drifted downward. Their light dimmed as they fell. Their essence fading into shadows. I saw people of all faiths, Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, and even those who had never believed in anything at all. Each soul's path wasn't tied solely to their beliefs, but to the state of their heart, the love they had given, the forgiveness they had shown, and the openness they carried within them. Then, I saw something that chilled me. I saw people I knew, good people. They had followed the rules, given to charity, and prayed every day. Yet, they were being pulled downward. Their prayers echoing into the darkness without response. Chains bound them. Glowing beautifully but heavy with weight. These chains were made of traditions, doctrines, and beliefs that had misled them, trapping them in a false sense of righteousness. As I looked closer, I recognized my own chains. They glowed with the symbols of my faith, shimmering with my prayers and rituals. I felt their weight, their grip on my soul. They had been beautiful to me, comforting even. But now I saw how they had held me back, blinding me to the greater truths beyond the rituals I had so faithfully followed. Then, I was led to a vast courtroom of light. Before me stood a judge, a presence so bright, so holy, that I couldn't bear to look directly at it. It was not a person or a being, but an overwhelming force of justice and mercy. Intertwined. Souls appeared before the judge. Their lives laid bare. Every action, every intention, every choice they had made was examined not just by what they had done, but by what they had chosen to believe and how they had carried those beliefs in their hearts. When it was my turn, I saw everything. I saw every time I had recited the Shahada, every time I had dismissed the Bible, every time I had taught someone that Jesus was just a prophet. These moments, which I had always seen as acts of devotion and truth, now appeared in a new light. I felt the weight of my mistakes crush me. Not because I had believed, but because of how my beliefs had sometimes blinded me to the deeper truths about love, humility, and grace. But I wasn't condemned. Instead, I felt something else, an invitation to understand, to grow, to see beyond the limitations of my own perspective. The judge wasn't there to punish, but to reveal. In that moment, I realized that faith wasn't about chains or rituals, it was about love, humility, and the openness of the soul. The being let me understand that I was being shown all this for a reason. This was not the end, I would be given a chance to return. As I was led upward, closer to the radiant light, I felt the chains around me begin to dissolve. The weight that had bound me, the misunderstandings I had carried, began to fall away. The light grew warmer and brighter, filling me with a peace and love that words could never capture. And then, I saw him, Jesus, not just as a prophet, but as God himself. His presence overwhelmed me with a love so profound, so all-encompassing, that it brought me to tears. In his presence, the lies I had believed about him faded away. I understood the mystery of the Trinity not as a concept, but as a reality so vivid it was like seeing color for the first time. I was shown the truth of his death and resurrection, and how his teachings had been misunderstood and distorted over time. My heart ached as I realized that my faith, though sincere, had been built on misconceptions. Yet, there was no condemnation in his presence. Only love, understanding, and an invitation to see the truth. Then, I was shown what would happen if I chose to share this message. Lives would be touched, hearts would be opened, and those who were searching would find what they needed. Finally, I was given a choice. I could stay in this place of peace and light, or I could return to the world to share what I had learned. When I saw the lives that could be touched, the people who could find hope through my story, I knew I had to return. Waking up in the hospital felt like being squeezed into a space too small for my soul. The bright lights hurt my eyes, and my body ached as though it had been shattered and pieced back together. My family was around me, crying and hugging me, relieved I was alive. But when I tried to tell them what I had seen, they didn't understand. My mom thought I was confused or delusional. My dad grew angry, refusing to let me speak about it. Friends I had known my whole life stopped talking to me. People in my community rejected me, labeling me as someone who had lost their way. The isolation was painful, but the memory of what I had experienced sustained me. Over time, others began to approach me quietly, asking questions and sharing their own doubts. Some had experienced glimpses of something beyond and were seeking answers. They wanted to know what I had seen, what I had learned. Now, 2 years later, our home has become a sanctuary for those searching for faith, a gathering place for people from all walks of life, all beliefs, and even those who once claimed to have none. They come with questions, doubts, and stories of their own. Some are struggling with loss, others with guilt or fear, and some simply feel an emptiness they can't explain. Together, we sit, talk, and share what little pieces of truth we've found along our journeys. My younger sister has grown especially curious. She often asks me to share what I saw, her eyes wide with wonder and disbelief. She reads the Bible now, sometimes aloud, pausing to ask me what certain passages mean or why they resonate with her so deeply. Her questions are thoughtful, her hunger for understanding genuine. My father remains hesitant, unsure of what to make of it all. He rarely talks about what happened, but I've caught him reading the Bible late at night, the pages illuminated by the soft glow of his bedside lamp. He doesn't know I've seen him, and I don't bring it up. I've learned not to push him. Faith is a deeply personal journey, and everyone moves at their own pace. I share my story not because I expect everyone to believe it, but because I know that someone, somewhere, needs to hear it. I've learned that faith isn't about convincing others, it's about planting seeds and trusting that they'll grow in their own time. Once you've seen what I've seen, fear of rejection fades away. The truth matters more than the opinions of others. I live each day with profound gratitude for this second chance, a chance not just to continue living, but to live with purpose, intention, and meaning. The memory of what I experienced remains vivid and unshakable, like a beacon guiding me through the challenges, uncertainties, and joys of life. This experience transformed the way I see the world. It serves as a constant reminder that love, light, and hope are not fleeting emotions or distant ideals, they are real. They surround us, even when we can't see them. They exist for everyone, no matter where they've come from, what they've believed, or the burdens they carry. These truths transcend all boundaries, connecting us to something far greater than ourselves, something eternal and infinite. Each morning, I wake up with a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that my journey is no longer just my own. Every step I take now feels guided by the knowledge that I've been given a second chance, not just to live, but to share what I've seen and felt. My life today is one of gratitude and service, shaped by the understanding that we are all part of something far bigger than ourselves. I've been given a second chance, and with it comes the responsibility to give back, offer hope, and be a light for others. If my story can touch even one person, someone feeling lost or searching for meaning, then every struggle I've faced will have been worth it. Not everyone will believe me, and that's okay. I'm not here to convince anyone or to demand understanding. I'm here to share what I know to be true, trusting that those who need this message will find it in their own time and in their own way. Faith, hope, and love are deeply personal journeys. They can't be forced or rushed. They unfold at their own pace, shaped by each person's unique experiences and struggles. If my story can serve as a small light along the way, guiding someone through their darkest hours, then I know I've fulfilled my purpose. I've come to see that every day is a gift, not just to live, but to live with intention, to make choices that bring more light into the world. Every moment is an opportunity to offer kindness, to extend grace, to remind someone that they are not alone. For this second chance, for the truths I've been shown, and for the chance to share them, I am forever grateful. If you believe in God and near-death experiences, subscribe to Life at NDE today. Discover inspiring messages from God through powerful near-death stories that bring hope and understanding. Hit subscribe now and join us in spreading the light of faith.